This message and next week's message go together, but they're not exactly a series. Each one could stand on its own, but they fit because they're simply dealing with different parts of the same passage. So let's read through the scripture, and then we'll move into the context of Peter's letter, and then we'll move into discussing what he's talking about. He writes, "Servants, be submissive to your masters in all reverence, not only to the good and gentle, but listen, also to the unscrupulous. For this brings one joy, if, being present to God, one suffers unjustly. For what is noteworthy about enduring just punishment when you sin? But if, when you do good and suffer for it, you endure, this brings joy with God. For to this you were called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example, that we should follow in his steps. He committed no sin, nor was deceit found in his mouth. When he was reviled, he did not revile in return. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but continued entrusting himself to him who judges righteously." Peter is writing to a church that is facing increasing persecution and violence. And persecution is, by its nature, unjust suffering. And unjust suffering, if we want to make a connection to this, someone may not necessarily be persecuting us because we say we believe in Jesus, but unjust suffering is the everyday reality of a world under the oppression of the dark one, isn't it? And so as we look at these verses, the Spirit wants us to hear what Peter has to say about how it is that we face unjust suffering. And if we start to think about this to its nth degree, there really is not a whole lot of suffering that's just, is there? And so, let's take a look. We're going to be focusing on verses 18 through 20. I'm going to reread those to set our context once again. "Servants, be submissive, hupotasso, order your life properly under your masters. And do this in all reverence, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the unscrupulous. For this brings one joy." Really? This brings one joy, if, being present to God, one suffers unjustly. For what is noteworthy about enduring just punishment when you sin? If you get what's coming to you and you endure it, so what? There's nothing praiseworthy in that. But if when you do good and suffer for it, you endure, this brings joy with God. It's not something that takes place apart from him, but something that takes place when you are with him. So, let's take a look at this joy idea. Brings one joy and brings joy. The word for joy here is actually just the word for grace. And the word for grace, charis, has the root word char, which is the word joy. Grace simply speaks about that which brings you joy. So God's grace is that which he does because it gives him pleasure to do it. God treats us well because it gives him joy to do so. Not because we earn anything. but because that is the pleasure of God to treat us well, whether we deserve it or not. But I want us to remember what we've talked about in the distant past about the basic understanding of joy in Scripture. So joy is about well-being. Joy is about well-being. Joy, for us, is the experience or the expression of well-being. Joy is the experience or the expression of well-being. But there's another step involved, and that is the source of joy is the perception of the good. The source of joy is the perception of the good and the beautiful. That's because we have well-being when we are aware of the good and the beautiful. Our experience of the good and the beautiful is our experience of well-being. If there is no goodness, if there is no beauty, there is no well-being to know. Does that seem to make sense, those ideas? Are there any questions or comments that you want to make regarding those? So joy isn't simply about being giddy. Joy is about a deep-seated sense of well-being. Because you recognize the good and the beautiful that is present. All right? So how does our Scripture say that we may have well-being while suffering unjustly? Look at the verses. Don't just say something. Look at the verses.
Continuing to entrust yourself to Him who judges righteously.
Yes, Don says, when you entrust yourself to Him who judges righteously, which in verse 19 is said this way, being present to God. Being present to God. And then in verse 20, if you are with God in your unjust suffering. That is to say, if you are participating with Him. So it's not just you, all alone, being mistreated, and the only thing that is in your scope of attention is the wrong that you are suffering. But if with that you also are aware of the presence of God, does that fit for you?
Yeah.
And that's what we see down in verse 19 that we were just talking about. So let's take a look at these words a bit more. Being present is a word that in its most literal form means to know together with. To know together with. And it speaks of being conscious of the good, being conscious of the good, and then evaluating a situation in light of that good. I'll say that again. Being conscious of the good and evaluating a situation in light of that good. So you're knowing the situation together with the good. And for that reason, this word is sometimes translated as conscience. Because conscience is when we evaluate an action based upon our perception of the good.
Can you say that again?
Mm-hmm. Conscience is when we evaluate a situation based upon our perception of the good. And sometimes our conscience convicts us, and sometimes it says, good job. Because we're looking at that situation together with what is the good. And so it acts in our conscience. The idea is, though, you are conscious of the good. And because you are conscious of the good, you are evaluating things in its light. So knowing the situation together with God, that's the literal, the knowing with. Being present to God is knowing the situation together with God in it. It is being conscious of God, being aware of God, and evaluating things in light of Him. Any questions, comments? As you think about that just a moment, one of the reasons we suffer so deeply without well-being during injustice is because we don't see God in the midst of that. Our attention is taken up almost entirely with the injustice, with the wrong. And so there is no source of well-being. There is only that which is wrong. And because there is only that which is wrong, there is no sense of well-being. There's no good. There's no beautiful. Everything stinks. Right? And that's what makes unjust suffering so difficult for us. There's this passage from Deuteronomy 8, that I think fits in really well with what we're talking about. And the context is also helpful for us if we reflect on it. It's long, I know that. I'm going to read it through and then we'll make short work of it, okay? So the context of the passage is that Israel has come through the wilderness and now they are on the cusp of entering into the promised land. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and springs that flow out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, and a land in which you will eat bread without scarcity, in which you will lack nothing, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills you can dig copper. When you have eaten and are full, then you shall bless the Lord your God for the good land which, note, He has given you. You didn't make the land this way. God did. And God is giving you this land. Skip a few verses and come down to 11, or skip a verse, come down to 11. Beware that you do not forget the Lord your God by not keeping His commandments, His judgments, and His statutes, which I command you today, lest, when you have eaten and are full, and have built beautiful houses, and dwell in them, and when your herds and your flocks multiply, and your silver and your gold are multiplied, and all that you have is multiplied, when your heart is lifted up, and you forget the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage, when you forget who fed you in the wilderness with manna, which your fathers did not know, that He might humble you. Okay, notice that is opposed to when your heart is lifted up. He's contrasting two situations here. That He might humble you and that He might test you. Test not in the sense of our modern day idea. We always think in terms of luring into evil. It's not what the word means. Wonderfully, the word means to train, or to accustom, or to exercise, to give you an experience that then trains you for the good. And notice what he says right after that he might test you to do good to you in the end. That is to say, the goal of the exercise that you go through, the goal of the training and the accustoming, the goal is good for you. Goodness and beauty for your life. This is training you in the wilderness to be able to relate to me in such a way that you perceive the goodness and the beauty that I bring, because that's what it will take for you to thrive in the promised land. Without that ability, the enemy will overtake you even there. So the wilderness is where you learn how to do that. Does that make sense? Okay. Then, so that's the purpose. If you forget, however, verse 17 says, then you'll say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gained me all this wealth. And the word wealth, there's the same word that's used in the next verse. It can mean wealth, but the basic idea is it's the word might. And so it means everything that strengthens your life. Everything that nourishes your life. So if your heart gets lifted up and you've got all of these things that the Lord provides, but you get to the place where you say, well, sure, I got a monthly check, but that's because I take my behind to work and I earn that money. That's not God. That's me. I'm doing that. That's not provision. I worked for that. I earned that. That's mine. I provide what strengthens my life. That's what it ends up being for us. And so he says, and you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to make wealth. He is the one that gives you the ability to make use of what strengthens your life that he has, by the way, provided for you. All of that fit? Okay, so regard to our question, how does this passage from Deuteronomy relate to what we are talking about this morning from our primary passage?
Well, the suffering that we endure can be viewed as training in the wilderness, the experience, so that we grow dependent or recognize being made present to God, so that we can see the beauty He has for us.
Yes, yes.
It's
The
a
things that
process, an accustoming process.
Yes. The suffering that we go through, God is able to use as an accustoming process that teaches us to recognize the God who is always present. Somebody else want to take a stab at that? What does this passage tell us is the problem that we have because we're given so much, and it's always available?
We don't see it for what it is.
Yes, we don't see it for what it is. What is it then? If we see it for what it is God in the act of loving us. Everything is God in the act of loving us. We'll get to that more in just a bit. God gives them the land. So he is the one who is supplying the ore they're going to mine. He is the one that supplies the ground which grows the crops. And he is the one that supplies the way in which nature is put together, that if you plant, you will also reap. That's all God. And that's all God doing that at that moment. He doesn't just start something off. He's not just winding a watch and then stepping away. These things only continue to exist the way that they exist and how they exist because God is in that moment lifing them that way. If God stopped doing that at any point in the process, you could plant something and it would never grow because it wouldn't be the function of planting. Or you could plant something, dig the hole, put it in there, it'll never bear crops. That only happens because God is keeping that way of acting, that matter acts. God is choosing to do that constantly. There is no secular world. The world is a sacrament of what God is up to all the time. And if that is what God is doing, that means this is God in the act of loving you. This is God in the act of giving you good, of putting things together in an order that is harmonious, which is what beauty is. If you think it's a beautiful thing that you can just plant and then something grows, you're right. And that is the beauty that God is doing in that moment. For you, for me. He doesn't need it, but we do. Isn't that amazing?
It's a neat example of participation.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's not because of something that we have done. It's like that, oh, well, if you just give God more faith, then He's going to give more back to you.
Right.
No, He's always in the act of loving you.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And then God gives them the ability to make use of all of this stuff so that their lives are nourished and strengthened. Because He wants to do them good. He wants them to know the good, to know the beauty, so that why? They may have well-being. So don't forget the context of what is happening with Deuteronomy also. This is what is necessary as we come out from under the oppression of a foreign government. Israel was leaving, right? They were leaving their slavery to Egypt. They were coming into all of the goodness that God had promised for them. And so they're having to be accustomed to how do you live in such a way that you can, Rob, participate in the good that God gives you. Because the only way you've learned how to live so far is a slave. How do you live as a child? So, when we look at verse 18, this question, what does ability refer to? There can be some obvious things, but there can be some things that are not as obvious.
Skills.
Okay, skills. One thing. The skill for developing whatever it might be that you are developing.
Opportunity.
Opportunity.
Creativity.
Creativity.
Provision.
Provision. That provision becomes really important because you have to say, well, what's being provided? So your ability includes your ability to be alive, right? If you're not alive, you can't make use of much. It's hard to stay alive if you don't breathe. And do you do your breathing without God? No. Because God is the one who is working in your body at every moment to give you the capacity for breath. Oh, and it'd be no good if there was nothing to breathe. And so God is consistently holding air available to you so that you have the ability to breathe it. And then you've got to be able to put two and two together, to learn from experience, to have an experience and then interpret it, to know that if you start plowing and planting, something will grow. So that means you have to have a mind and you have to have understanding. And we have all of that apart from God, don't we? No. We have a mind that works the way that it works because God is at that moment giving us a mind that works like that. This is why our minds and God's are never in competition. Never. Because God is the one who is keeping your mind working. Even when your mind is choosing against Him, you couldn't choose against Him if He weren't keeping your mind and working. So God's really not scared of your mind. He's not scared of your will. Oh my gosh, if I will the wrong thing, then God will give it to me, and that's the end of the matter. I willed against God, so there it is. God can't do anything about it. Yeah, He can, really. He really can. He's just not scared of your will. He's the one who gives you the will to will. And so when you start thinking this way, your body doesn't usually work very well if you don't have a heart that's beating. And unless your body has blood that the heart can actually pump, there's not much good going on. You see how all of this is actually everything. Everything. Everything is given from God and is sustained by God in every moment that we exist. For what purpose? To do us good. As an expression of His love in that moment. Yeah, but this guy said bad words to me. You don't understand. He said bad words to me, and there's nothing else good left. Really? Only the entire rest of life is the act of God's love for you. Really, there's no beauty, there's no goodness. He gave me the finger. I can't have a good day if He gave me the finger. Holy moly, are you telling me that a digit raised against you has obliterated the entire beauty and goodness of everything that God is doing in your life? Oh my gosh.
I know. Sometimes much less do that for me.
Me too,
Sometimes
Brian.
I wish somebody would just give me the finger to snap me out of it.
Isn't this just an absolutely ridiculous way to evaluate our lives? But this is what it means to live deceived. This is the depth of our blindness. This is the spell of darkness. That we don't just snap out of it and now we see everything. This is why we have to be accustomed to thinking this way. It's not an idea you get, okay, now I can just move on. You have to be accustomed to perceive this on a regular basis in your life. You have to be trained for it. This is what it means to be a disciple. We're learning how to live the way Jesus lives. And this is the fundamental issue in how Jesus lives. He perceives the Father. It's why Hebrews can say, and why Jesus can do, who, for the joy, the well-being set before Him, endured the cross. Not way out there in the future, set before Him at that moment. The cross was not all that was going on in the world. And the cross could not blot out the infinite goodness of God. You see that? So we've gone through several of these questions, haven't we? We have, because I'm a talker. What deceptions make it difficult to take our attention off of the injustice that we're suffering? Think about your life, or that friend of yours that
God isn't going to judge righteously.
yes,
That they're going to get away with it,
yes,
and that there won't really be justice. That's it. The notion that some people just get away with doing cruel, awful things, and nothing ever happens.
yes, and the deception that something ought to happen bad to them.
Oh yeah.
That justice is about getting back at them to make sure they pay for what they did, instead of restoring them to be the kind of people who would never have done it in the first place. I think the second one is a little more important than the first.
Sometimes it's not the others that's really the issue. It's our own poor self-reflection or image of ourselves. And
Yes.
it's easier to look at the other individual and say, you're the problem, or they're
Yes.
the problem, rather than it's, I'm the problem.
Yes, absolutely right. I know that in my own life, one of the real issues for injustice is the poor esteem I hold of myself. So it doesn't take very much to pluck the string of injustice in my life. And because there's that broken place in me, it hurts. And I assume that because it hurts, it's telling me what's true. But it's not. It's just not. Yeah.
We also tend to want to protect the hurt.
Yeah, we do.
It's so stupid. But
Yes.
we do.
Yeah.
I mean, why protect that? Really?
Yes. Because we don't think that acting another way will actually be better for our hurt. We think protecting it is what cures it, and it never does. I mean, think about all the times you've tried to protect your sense of inadequacy and how strong your adequacy is now. No. Protecting yourself means you never grow there. You never grow where you continue to protect. Because it never gets exercised. It never gets trained. It never gets accustomed. If you protect a person, there was this guy in high school, his name was Mike Thompson, and he was on the weightlifting team. He was huge from the waist up. He was huge, but he had these little old legs because he never did leg day. So his legs were just teeny tiny, and what made it worse is he had this kind of high voice, and I kind of talk like this, and so he's all built up here, but he protected his legs against work, right? And his legs never developed. They never matched what was up top. There are areas of our life that never match what's been developed because we protect them against getting developed. We can't do that. Because the angels laugh at our little skinny legs. Yeah. So what has God impressed upon you in our conversation this morning?
For me, one of the things that I said, I told you about this too, is that with the job loss, with the layoff, I saw before me, oh my gosh, Mike, you're going to go through rejection over and over again with every job that you applied for.
Yeah.
And I was lifting that to God. I would just say, God, I'm telling you right here, this is how I'm feeling. And it took, like you say, it's a continual accustoming.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of that, because I'm acknowledging God is present in that suffering. I can see it before me.
Yeah.
It's like, here it is, and it seems painful, but it's also God continually saying, just let go of that, keep going, keep moving.
Yeah.
Because He's just giving me the ability and the drive that just says, well, I know I can do what I do.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yes.
looking back and I'm
Yes.
saying, I actually am enjoying the ride. I don't know how
Yeah.
to say it, but it's like there's a joy that comes from this
Yes.
customing. It's a continual process.
Yeah. That's the well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good, Mike. Thank you.
That there could be joy in suffering and unjustly.
Yes. Yeah.
Every time I see my brother, he says something that's devaluing, and I've really been having a hard time with that recently. Just thinking about it past times.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a good antidote to that. Anyone else?
I kept having brought to my mind Emmanuel and all in all.
Oh, yeah. So good.
That's essentially what it is.
Yep.
Sums it up.
Yeah. Were you able to hear? Jeff said what kept coming to his mind, what the Spirit kept on saying to him was Emmanuel and all in all. Emmanuel, of course, means God with us. In all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to take for granted
Yes.
all the blessings that comes from God, not from me.
Yes.
You know, like it's easy to, I don't know, it seems like the stresses in life come in threes or something like that. You know what I mean? And like over the last several weeks, we go from like our air conditioning's on the last leg, that's 10,000. I had dental surgery, that's 5,000.
Yep.
And then last night I enjoy my Camaro and I take it out for the first time in like 3 months, and then a radiator hose blows, and now I got to deal with that. And it's like, and so I'm sitting here going like, I want to escape from all that.
Yes.
Like, you know, like I want to escape from it, but it was like, but God like blessed and gave the ability for me to be able to participate and enjoy it, and then He will find a way to provide and help me maintain it or eliminate it if it's not needed.
Yes.
Then you know.
Yeah.
That, well, you know what I'm saying,
Sure.
right? So it's trying to have that, like, the perspective for, you know, is stress. I'm already planning like ripping a radiator hose out and all this stuff, and I'm all stressed out about how I'm going to have time to do it, money, blah 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 blah, right?
Yeah.
But in the big picture, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it keeps us from enjoying the good and the beautiful that's actually present. I mean, look at you. You have a beautiful wife, wonderful daughter and son. And when you're in this, you can't enjoy what's present.
Mm-hmm.
That's true for all of us.
That's just another inconvenience. That's,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
But it's not what really matters.
Yes.
You know, it's not.
Yes.
You know.
And the so-called suffering and injustice is really, is it really at that point, if you're walking with God, then is it really truly suffering at all? I mean, if you truly know that God is with you, even in any trial, especially during an injustice, is it really, at that point, I'd be rejoicing. I'd be like, oh, this is great. Because this is like what it means to finally actually, you know, for doing something good. Because most of the time it's like, oh, people are being unjust to me because I am a Christian. No, it's because I was an a-hole, you know, or something, you know, like it's somebody, you know, so.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Suffering is optional. I don't look at it as that. If you're with Christ, it's not suffering. That's what I see.
Well, and I think what you're articulating there is that suffering, we tend to think of it as that which takes meaning away from life. If we recognize that we suffer and can be present to God, we're never without meaning. Right? So meaning is always present, even when there is physical or mental distress. It doesn't mean the meaning is gone. And that's what provides the sense of well-being. If there is genuinely no meaning to life, then there's no well-being. There is no good. There is no beauty. It's goodness and beauty that provide well-being and meaning.
And one thing, Rob, that you were talking about your brother that stood out to me is I'm going to try to say this or frame this the right way, but I think sometimes we relate to, like I have a similar relationship you do with your brother with my mom. And so I think sometimes we can, in our deception, we can relate to others based off of our past and our interactions with them, and we can take something as devaluing, but that's never how they intended it. For instance, on the way here, my mom sent me this big long message complaining about my dad, right? And I had my wife read it, and I'm all mad at my mom because she's complaining about my dad and all this past, like, she's always devalued my dad to us kids in the past, right? And my wife is going, well, she feels unsupported, blah, 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 blah. So I was able to get unmad at my mom on the way here and try to see it from a different, like, it's not that she's devaluing my dad, it's she feels unsupported and blah, 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 blah. And so I think, like, sometimes in our deception, we can take things the wrong way.
It's possible.
Not always.
It sure is.
I'm just saying sometimes. Some of it has to be.
Well, in just a few moments, we are going to celebrate the life that we have with Jesus, in which all the good and the beautiful flow. And we have, and that's where we're headed. So good. So reflect on that for just a moment, and then come and take from the bread and the cup.